So Steven being in Fishers, Indiana, it's basically Indianapolis, he is checking out his seeding window. When is the best time? So as I mentioned, you want to start in the fall. When you're ready to seed, you want to get your grass seed down as soil temperatures are falling to 70. So right now, as I look at Fishers, Indiana, I just did this just today. Currently, right now, August 8th, Fishers, Indiana, current soil temp is 79 degrees. If you want to know how I got that, I went to the GreenCast Tool. Just go on Google and search GreenCast online or GreenCast soil temperatures. They have a nice tool you can put in your zip code, and it will tell you the current soil temps. Now, again, those are averages for the area. It's not exact. You can always get your own soil thermometer and take your own readings because your own lawn will vary. You know, shady spots will be cooler than hot spots. Spots by the driveway will be hotter than areas in the middle of the lawn. But the long and the short of it is we're just looking for a window here. We're looking for a target to aim at. We don't have to hit it perfect. We're going to use logic. And the GreenCast tool tells us that currently in Fishers, Indiana, it's 79 degrees. And that's why it's smart for Steven to start looking ahead. Now, that's the current soil temp. What you can do, though, with that is you can move the tool back to 2018 and look at the soil temp last year at this exact same time. Now, the other thing that that'll do, though, when you move it back to last year is it'll give you the 5 and 10-year averages for that area. So as I do that, I'm going to try to find when is the average temperature in Fishers, Indiana, going to be 70 degrees? Again, this is soil temperature. I'm going to play with the tool until I find the most logical spot and date that tells me the 5 and or 10-year averages for Fishers, Indiana. The soil is 70 degrees. And when I do that, I find that it's September 10th. Now, if you're on YouTube, I'll put these screenshots up for you. You can see them. But again, just go to the GreenCast tool and play around with it, and you'll be able to pick up what I'm putting down here. And so on September 10th, I can see 2018, the temperature on September 10th was 64. That's a little low. But the 5-year average, because again, we want to make sure we're looking at the average soil temps, not one single year. The average soil temp from 2014 to 2018 in Fishers, Indiana on September 10th is 69 degrees, and the 10-year average, which is 2009 to 2018, is 69.8. So I would say Fishers, Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, Central Indiana, whatever you want to call it, your optimum time to seed is sometime leading up to September 10th. And obviously, Steven's done his homework because that's exactly what he said in his call, the first couple weeks of September. So just know by using that GreenCast tool, when you notice your historic soil temps are approaching 70, that's when you want to seed. Probably somewhere a week to 10 days ahead of that goal is when you want to seed. Now, if you have an outlier, it can happen that all of a sudden we get a cold spell. Well, that's when you need to be able to bob and weave and try to, adjust a little bit. But just realize these windows are fairly consistent over the years. So if you do have an outlier, if you do have a little bit of a strange year, just know that's why we hope for the best. We take all the available data that we have here and we try to make the best decision we can. We make their best guess, our educated guess. And by the way, this is one of the advantages that you as a homeowner have over somebody that's allowing a professional to do it. A professional cannot get to everyone's lawn on the exact day, a week before September 10th in Fishers, Indiana. Not going to happen. They have to kind of move things over time. They have to start a little bit early and finish a little bit later. Does that mean they're doing something wrong? No, they get great results and they have for years. But you as a homeowner, you have one job and that's one lawn and you can hit it perfect. And that's your advantage being a DIYer. So go ahead and take the time, look up these dates. It's fun to do it anyway. I promise you, as you start looking at the soil temps, things will start coming more clear to you, especially if you have one of my guides. You'll be like, oh, that's what that means. That's why that means that. And then also this next week, I'm going to send out an email that kind of details this a little bit more to back up this podcast. So definitely look for that in your email. And if you're not on my free email list, make sure you go to thelawncarenut.com and sign up today. So if we know that September 10th is our ideal time to start seeding, or actually a week to 10 days before that, now what we want to do is just make sure, well, does my 45 days work out there? Does my 45-day window still hold water? So what I do is I take the GreenCast tool and I advance it up into October. And I'm just looking at different dates. And as I do that, what I'm able to see is that the 5 and 10-year averages will toggle a little bit here and there. And I look for that best window. And as I do that for Fishers, Indiana, it looks to me like right around October 20th is when soil temperatures begin to dip to 55. Now, why is 55 the end point? That's because most cool season lawns, when the soil temperatures get below 55, they're going to shut off. There is a little bit of growth there. And in fact, as long as the soil is not frozen, there's always some kind of activity happening there. But below 55, the lawn stops putting in top growth and it just starts to conserve. And so that's how you know that 55 is a good point, because your new grass is just not going to mature very much further, if any, once soil temps reach that 55. Now, obviously, it can go up and down and all kinds of things can happen. But again, we're looking for that historical mark. And Fishers, Indiana, as of October 20th, the 5-year average is 56 degrees and the 10-year average is 53.6. So it tells me that October 20th is my window. Now the question becomes, is that 45 days? And if I take September 10th, but I'm going to back that up 1 week. Remember, you want to go a week to 10 days before your soil temps historically hit 70. So we'll call it, just to make my math easy, September 1st all the way until October 20th. That's actually, how many days is that? 30? That's 50 days. So I've actually got a 5-day pad there in my window, but that's pretty much perfect. So Stephen, thanks for calling in from Fishers in Indiana, where you made the window perfect. But I guarantee you that every one of you, or the majority of you, unless you're extreme north or extreme south in the transition zone, you'll be able to work a very similar little structure here. Just funny how that all works out. Everything just all comes together in nature like that. So I encourage you to do that for yourself using the GreenCast tool. Now, there's one other thing that I want to do though, because the soil temps dictate some things, but as I mentioned very early on in the podcast, you also want to watch your outside temperatures, because a lot of times outside temperatures can fluctuate without changing the soil temperature very much, especially if things dip here and there on outside temperatures. And so the next thing we want to do is look at our first frost dates. Now, there's also something to look at. There's a difference in a frost and a hard freeze. A hard freeze is what's going to kill baby grass, and that's really what you're worried about. However, frost can also stunt it, damage it, slow it down, or whatever. So we want to make sure that even though we've got our 45 days, we still want to check when is our first frost date, and then how does that maybe coincide with when we might get our first hard freeze, because definitely a hard freeze shuts down all the growth. Everything stops. And again, if things are not hardened off, if their skin isn't thick enough, if those grass toddlers haven't gotten tough, they can be damaged by that too. So here I go to almanac.com, and almanac.com actually has the typical first frost dates. And so I put in Fishers, Indiana 46038, and what it tells me is that the first frost is on average going to be October 12th in Fishers, Indiana, October 12th. Now remember, the end of my window was October 20th, and I had 5 days of padding in there. So if you back that up to October 15th, that means that probably, historically speaking, the first frost, now what is a frost? I'm going to read that to you in a minute, but typically the first frost is going to come somewhere right at the end of that 45 days, and that's fine. That's my second mowing, and that's when I can feel confident that everything is good. Now, let me just talk a little bit here about the difference in a freeze and a frost, and I'm just going to go to almanac.com here once again. That's ALMANAC, almanac.com. What is the difference between a freeze and a frost? I'm just going to read right from their website, just so you understand the difference here. A frost refers to the conditions that allow a layer of ice crystals to form when water vapor condenses and freezes without first becoming dew. Frost may happen when the surface air temperature, officially measured at 4 or so feet above the ground, is below the 36 degree Fahrenheit mark. So just think about it. Frost is going to come at 4 feet above the ground, getting below 36. Now, the thing you'll know about frost is that it burns off as soon as the sun hits it. In fact, I remember in the days back working for True Green, I worked over by Northwest Indiana, which is a couple hours north of Fishers, but the same thing, we would have frost on the ground in the mornings in October, but we were still doing applications. We would just start a little bit later in the day. We'd wait for the frost to burn off, because obviously if there's ice crystals hanging on the grass and it's in the shade, you don't want to step on that because that can definitely damage it. But we knew that the frost wasn't going to really damage the turf, especially if it was new, old, whatever. You just didn't want to walk on it. So a frost is not necessarily going to be a problem if you're towards the end of your 45-day window. However, here's back to almanac.com, a freeze can happen when the surface air temperature falls to 32 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Now that's the surface air, not 4 feet above, but the surface, so much closer down where our grass is. Frost may or may not form. A light freeze between 32 and 29 can kill tender plants, in this case, tender toddler grass. A moderate freeze between 28 and 25 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes called a hard freeze, can cause wide destruction to plants. And then there's a severe freeze, which is 24 degrees or below. Now, your grass, your new grass that you're growing, will be able to handle 24 degrees or below if it's been past that 2 mowings. Now, the other thing that can happen is if you're, if there's a weather extreme, like an immediate drop and it never comes back up, that can cause problems, but that'll cause a lot of problems with a lot of things. Typically, we don't go there. We dip in, dip out, go up, go down. There's terms like Indian summer, which is an extended summer. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that anymore, if that offends people, but you get what I'm saying, like extended summer, early winter, all of these things. You can't control any of that. All you can do is, like I say, control the controllables and make sure that you have your 45-day window intact and know these facts. So definitely go to almanac.com and look at when your annual first frost date is, because that can be an indicator that soon after that, you may need to be concerned about a freeze. Now, I was in the Facebook group yesterday, and one guy said, Alan, I appreciate what you're saying here, but what about the summer? He says, you know what? I'm going to seed in the summer anyway, and I loved it. I told him, I said, dude, I love it. I actually secretly root for you guys when you break the rules. I just want to say, you can seed in the summer. You can seed in the middle of the summer, and your grass will germinate. The challenge that you have in the summer is just as I've just been warning you about extreme freezes and cold, in the middle of the summer, you have a problem with an extreme heat stress. So just like we've been seeing all summer here, we've had temperatures over 90, and even healthy turf, even non-healthy turf, but established turf is checking out. Especially if it doesn't get enough water, it'll check out quick. Around edges, it'll check out quick, and it'll go into summer dormancy. And if it's left there for a long time, it can cause some damage. Now, I don't see a lot of long-term damage happening this year from our heat phases, but it's definitely something that's stressing some of you guys out. But imagine that baby toddler grass that's just come up. It's looking for some nourishment. It's looking for some soft sunshine, and all of a sudden it gets destroyed with bright, heavy sunlight, no cloud cover, 90-degree temperatures. It doesn't have the root structure, and it doesn't have the chutzpah. It doesn't have the thick skin, the leathery skin to get through that heat. And what can happen is all the investment that you put into that grass seed can be for naught, because it can be killed in the heat. So yes, definitely you can seed in the middle of the summer. However, I don't recommend it. I recommend you wait for this 45-day window, which begins when soil temperatures are falling to 70, a week to 10 days before that, and ends when soil temperatures fall below 55 in the soil. Follow those best practices, and as always, my friends, let's hope for the best.